Shantivan Cemetery was old, very old. Stones leaned crooked, names were worn by rain and wind. Trees with twisted branches stood like silent watchers over the dead. People in the nearby town whispered about Shantivan. They said it was a place where the ground held more than just bones. They said some graves were restless. At night, when the moon was a sliver, shadows danced there. Animals stayed away from certain parts. Even the wind seemed to hush as it passed over particular plots, carrying secrets best left undisturbed. Among these plots there was one that drew the darkest whispers. It was known only as Plot 39. It lay in a forgotten corner of the cemetery. No grand tombstone marked it, no flowers ever bloomed there. It was just a rectangle of bare earth. Sometimes it looked flat. Other times people swore it looked slightly raised. Old man Hemlock, who sold tea by the cemetery gates, said it had been that way for as long as he could remember. He said some things are best left alone, especially the earth that breathes. Plot 39 had a reputation. Children dared each other to touch its soil. They would run away giggling, then have nightmares for weeks. Adults avoided it. They would take longer routes through the cemetery to bypass it. They felt a coldness there, a sense of being watched, a feeling that something was waiting beneath the dirt, something patient, something hungry. They said it was a place where sorrows were buried deep, so deep they might one day try to claw their way back to the sun. The air around Plot 39 was always still. Even on windy days, the dust on its surface lay undisturbed. No birds sang in the trees nearby. Insects seemed to skirt its edges. It was a patch of silence in a place already dedicated to quiet. But this silence was different. It was heavy. It pressed down on you. It felt like the silence before a scream. The ground itself seemed to listen, to wait. Riya was a young woman. She had come to the town for an internship. It was not a normal internship. She was not working in an office. She was not working in a shop. Her internship was at Shantivan Cemetery. She was studying botany. She wanted to catalogue the old plants, the mosses, the lichens that grew on the ancient stones. She found beauty in forgotten things. She thought the cemetery was peaceful. She did not yet know its secrets. She arrived on a grey morning. The mist clung to the tombstones. Mr. Bouchan, the caretaker, met her at the gate. He was a man of few words. His face was lined like an old map. He showed her the small office. He gave her a set of keys. "Be careful where you step," he said. His voice was low and gravelly. "Some ground here is not stable." Riya nodded. She was eager to start. She thought he meant loose stones or rabbit holes. Riya liked the quiet. She liked the solitude. She spent her days walking among the graves. She sketched the crumbling angels. She noted the rare ferns growing in the shadows of mausoleums. The work was slow. It was methodical. She felt a connection to the past, to the lives memorialized there. She was not afraid of graveyards. She found them full of stories. She believed every stone had a tale to tell if only one knew how to listen. But Shantivan was different from other cemeteries she had visited. There was an undercurrent she could not name. Sometimes she would feel a sudden chill. Sometimes she would think she heard a whisper on the wind, too faint to understand. She told herself it was just her imagination. The place was old. It was bound to have an atmosphere. She was a scientist. She believed in what she could see, what she could measure. She did not believe in ghosts, not yet. One afternoon, Riya was mapping the western section. It was an older part of Shantivan. The graves were scattered, many were unmarked. She was looking for a specific type of moss, the kind that only grew on very old limestone. As she pushed past a tangle of overgrown bushes, she saw it. Plot 39, it was different from the other graves. It pulled at her gaze. She stopped her work. She felt a curious tug. There was no stone, no name, no dates, just a rectangle of dark, bare earth. It was stark against the weedy grass surrounding it. The soil looked freshly turned, yet old at the same time. No plants grew on it, not even a single weed. It was perfectly barren. Riya frowned. It was unusual. Even the poorest graves usually had a simple cross or a field stone. This had nothing. It was as if the earth itself refused to be marked. She stepped closer. A strange feeling washed over her, not quite fear, more like a deep unease. The air around the plot felt colder. She knelt by its edge. She reached out a hand, hesitant. She wanted to touch the soil, to see what it felt like, but something stopped her. A prickle on her skin, a whisper in her mind that said, "Don't." She pulled her hand back. She told herself she was being foolish. Riya made a note in her logbook. Plot 39, unmarked, barren soil, unusual. She tried to be scientific, she tried to be detached, but the image of the bare earth stayed with her. It was a blank space, in a place full of names and dates, a mystery, and Riya was drawn to mysteries. She decided she would find out more about Plot 39. She had no idea what she was about to uncover, or what would uncover her. The next day, Riya went to the cemetery office. It was a small, dusty room. Old ledgers and maps were piled high. She looked for records of Plot 39. She searched for hours. The pages were brittle. The ink was faded. She found maps dating back over a century. Plot 39 was always there, always just Plot 39. No name, no details, just a blank space on every chart, a silent void in the meticulous records. She asked Mr. Bouchan about it. He was sweeping leaves near the entrance. He paused his work. He looked at her. His eyes were shadowed. Plot 39, he said. Best to leave that one be. He offered no explanation, just a warning. Some things are not meant to be disturbed. Riya pressed him. She asked if he knew who was buried there or why it was unmarked. He just shook his head slowly. No one knows, or no one says. Riya felt frustrated, but her curiosity grew stronger. She talked to some of the older townsfolk. She visited the local historical society. Most people just shivered when she mentioned Shantivan's strange plot. They told her stories, old wives' tales, she thought, stories of things buried there that were not human, or things that were human but had done terrible deeds, things that should never see the light of day. Each story was different, but the fear was always the same. She returned to Plot 39 often. She would stand at its edge. She would watch it. The soil still looked dark and disturbed, as if something had recently been buried, or as if something was trying to get out. She started to feel that the plot was aware of her, watching her back. It was a strange, unsettling thought, but she could not shake it. The mystery of Plot 39 was becoming an obsession, a dark seed planted in her mind. Section 5. The Unsettling Rise. A week passed. Riya was sketching near the old chapel. She decided to walk by Plot 39 just for a quick look. As she approached, she noticed something. The earth. It looked different, higher. She blinked. Was she imagining it? She walked closer. The bare patch of soil was definitely mounded, not by much, just a gentle swell. But it had been flat before. She was sure of it. She had looked at it enough times. She hurried back to the office. She found an old measuring tape. She returned to Plot 39. Her heart beat a little faster. She carefully measured the height of the mound. Then she checked her notes. Her earlier description clearly stated flat, bare earth. Now it was raised by several inches. A cold knot formed in her stomach. Earth doesn't just rise on its own, not like this. Not so quickly. She found Mr. Bouchan. She told him what she saw. The grave, Plot 39, it's growing, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Bouchan listened. He did not look surprised. He did not look concerned. He just sighed. It's probably badgers, he said, or the ground settling after the rains. Riya shook her head. No, it's not animals. It's the whole plot. It's rising. He shrugged. The earth does strange things here, Miss Riya. But Riya knew this was not normal settling. This was not badgers. The mound was too even, too deliberate. It was as if something underneath was pushing upwards, pushing with a slow, relentless force. She felt a chill, despite the afternoon sun. Plot 39 was not just a piece of ground. It was alive, and it was growing. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. She knew with a certainty that frightened her that this was just the beginning. The dreams started that night. Riya found herself in Shantivan. It was dark, the moon was hidden. She was standing before Plot 39. The mound was much bigger now. It was as tall as her waist. As she watched, the earth began to shift. Cracks appeared, and from the cracks, dark, loamy soil spilled out like blood. Then a hand, a pale hand, caked with dirt, reached out from the mound, reaching for her. She would wake up screaming, her sheets damp with sweat. Every morning she went to Plot 39. Her dread grew with each visit. The mound was always higher. First a few more inches, then a foot, then 2. It was growing faster now. The soil was loose and dark. It seemed to pulse with a faint energy. She stopped trying to tell Mr. Bouchan. He would just shake his head. He seemed to accept it as a grim fact of Shantivan, or perhaps he was too afraid to acknowledge what was truly happening. Riya's fear became a constant companion. She had trouble eating. She couldn't sleep properly. When she did sleep, the nightmares returned, the grasping hand, the suffocating earth. She felt like she was being watched all the time. Even when she was away from the cemetery, she would see patches of dark soil in her vision. She would feel phantom dirt on her skin. The grave was consuming her thoughts, her waking hours, her dreams. She avoided plot 39 as much as she could, but it was like a magnet. She would find herself drifting towards it, drawn by a horrified fascination. The mound was now almost chest high. It was wider too, spreading outwards. It was becoming a dominant feature in that quiet corner of Shantivan. A silent, growing horror. Riya knew she had to do something, but what could she do against the earth itself, against a grave that refused to stay still? Riya decided she had to leave the town, leave Shantivan, leave plot 39 behind. She couldn't take the fear anymore. The growing grave haunted her every moment. She felt its presence like a cold weight on her soul. She would finish her internship early. She would make an excuse, anything to get away. She started packing her bags that evening. Her small rented cottage felt cold and unwelcoming. Every shadow seemed to writhe. The next morning she woke with a start. A strange sound had disturbed her, a soft scraping sound. She lay in bed listening. It came again from outside. Her heart pounded. She crept to the window, she peeked through the curtains, and she froze. There, on her small front lawn, was a patch of dark, disturbed earth. It was not large, but it was undeniably there, and it looked exactly like the soil from plot 39. A scream caught in her throat. How? How could it be here? Her cottage was miles from the cemetery. It made no sense, but there it was, a miniature version of the growing mound. Right outside her door, it was as if the grave had followed her, or a part of it had. She felt a wave of terror, so intense it made her dizzy. It knew where she lived. It had come for her. Or it was a warning. She threw her clothes into a suitcase. Her hands shook so badly she could barely fasten the latches. She had to get out, now, not just the town. She had to go far away. Somewhere the earth was normal, somewhere graves stayed in their place. She didn't look back at the patch of soil on her lawn. She couldn't bear to. She just knew she had to run as fast and as far as she could before it grew any larger. Riya grabbed her suitcase. She flung open her front door. She was ready to run, but she stopped. Her breath hitched. The patch of earth on her lawn was bigger, much bigger. Overnight, it had grown. It now covered most of the small path leading to the gate. It was a low mound, perhaps a foot high, dark, ominous, waiting. It was blocking her way. She felt a cold dread seep into her bones. It was faster than she thought. She tried to step around it, but as she moved, the edges of the mound seemed to shift, to spread, like a slow, dark tide. The soil crumbled and flowed, extending towards her feet. She backed away into her cottage. She slammed the door shut, locked it. But she knew a wooden door would not stop it. It was the earth itself. How could she escape the very ground beneath her feet? Panic clawed at her throat. She ran to the back door. Maybe she could escape that way. She fumbled with the lock. Her hands were slick with sweat. She pulled the door open. Her heart sank. Another mound, smaller than the one in front, but it was there, growing, spreading across the tiny back garden. She was trapped. The grave was all around her, closing in. She could almost smell the damp soil, the scent of decay, the scent of an open grave. She screamed then, a long, terrified wail, but who would hear her? Her cottage was isolated. The neighbors were too far away. The air in the cottage grew heavy, cold. She felt a pressure in her ears. The light coming through the windows seemed to dim. Shadows deepened in the corners of the rooms. She backed away from the doors into the center of the small living room, waiting. The scraping sound started again, louder this time, from all around. The earth was coming for her. Then there was only silence. The next morning, the sun rose over Shantivan Cemetery. Birds sang in the trees, dew glittered on the grass. Mr. Bhushan arrived for his daily rounds. He walked his usual path. He passed by the western section. He glanced towards plot 39. He paused. He looked again. The plot was flat, just a rectangle of bare, dark earth. As it had always been, there was no mound, no sign of any recent disturbance. It looked ordinary, unremarkable. Mr. Bhushan frowned for a moment. He remembered the young woman, Riya, her talk of the growing grave. He had dismissed it. Badgers, he had said, settling earth. He walked over to plot 39. He prodded the soil with the toe of his boot. It was firm. It felt like any other patch of ground in the old cemetery. He shrugged. Perhaps she had imagined it all. Young people, too much imagination. He continued his rounds. Riya was never seen again. Her packed suitcase was found in her locked cottage. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of any disturbance. The small patches of earth on her lawn and in her back garden were gone, as if they had never been there. The police searched. They asked questions, but no one knew where Riya had gone. She had simply vanished, like smoke, like a whisper on the wind. Plot 39 remains in Shantivan Cemetery, unmarked, bare. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, if you stand very still, you might think the earth there looks a little higher than it should, a little too dark, a little too eager, but then you blink and it looks flat again, just an ordinary patch of ground, waiting, always waiting. And the townspeople still whisper. They say the grave that grows sometimes gets hungry, and sometimes it finds what it's looking for.